Hello everyone and welcome to the Telespazio Xpress Talks, a 15 to 20 minute talk with leading figures from the new space sector, where we will talk about technology and sustainability. Welcome and enjoy the Telespazio Xpress Talks.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Telespazio Xpress Talks, our podcast on sustainability and space technology. Today, we have the pleasure to have as a guest Daria Stepanova from AIRMO. Hi, Daria. How are you doing?
Hello. Yes, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. We're very happy to have you. So I wanted to start our discussion by asking, who is Daria Stepanova? Where do you come from? What's your passion about space?
Right. Yes, I identify myself as an aerospace engineer. I was born in the same city where the father of the space flight was born. It's a city called Ryazan, and Tsiolkovsky, was also born there. I did my electrical engineering bachelor, so not really connected to aerospace. And after that, I had a chance to study on the year of exchange in Switzerland. There, I worked for 1 year at Swiss Space Center as a researcher, and I got introduced to CubeSats. And since then, I cannot stop. I've been working as a hardware developer in a company building small satellites. Then I went all the way to the CTO position there, and after that, decided to start my own company.
Very nice. You actually have a very badass background on, different parts of the value chain in space, because as you said, you were CTO for a satellite manufacturer, and you have pretty much seen every element of the value chain. And I guess supporting my next question, why AIRMO? That's probably one of the answers that you give us, right? So why did you decide, after doing all of this, to go and found a company like AIRMO?
Right. Yeah, I have a pragmatic answer and I have a romantic answer. Which one should I start with?
You should certainly give both because now we're very curious about them. Maybe the pragmatic would be the first one and the romantic we leave for last.
Right. Yeah. So I was generally curious about Earth observation payloads. We had several missions, like in my past occupation, focusing on observing the planet. So I was generally interested what technologies can be used for Earth observation, for climate monitoring, what new applications are behind new technologies. Yes. So on one side, this interest in how space can contribute to our current urgent needs. I was always very curious about it. On the other side, like I've started 3 companies before that, so I knew how is it to run your own enterprise. Was always curious about new opportunities, and the new opportunities came with certain market requests in shortwave infrared data. I combined it together, found partners with whom we decided to open the company, and married the very cool tech that we're now developing, micro LiDAR technology, to the urgent need of transitioning to net zero. That's the pragmatic answer. And the romantic answer, I was always fascinated by the space exploration, an idea to go explore, to move to the other planets, maybe even beyond. I found it always very cool. While I think not that much attention, like when you talk about space exploration, not that much attention is paid to actually observe and preserve the place we're coming from. So I was always in between these two worlds. I was deciding to. I was always feel more passionate about taking care of your own planet rather than going to the other planets.
Very nice. So essentially, you are at the intersection of 3 main areas. One being the technical expertise, the other one in the center being the need for the things that you guys are doing in AIRMO, and the third is the passion for space. So having fun by doing the first 2 things is actually very important. Very nice. Very, very nice. So AIRMO is actually a company, as you just described, that is plainly tackling the problems of global warming and climate change. But can you describe a bit more what's your impact on this, and what's the role that AIRMO is playing to solve these problems?
All right. Yeah, talking about AIRMO, what we're doing, we're building end-to-end climate monitoring service. We're starting with greenhouse gas emissions, and in particular with methane and CO2 emissions. We're using micro LiDAR instruments to measure the missing parts of atmospheric monitoring and complementing LiDAR and spectrometer together in one instrument. We're capable to extract the most a lot of information about the atmosphere and derive very precise information about concentrations and fluxes of greenhouse gases. We're supporting different types of companies, from direct emitters to financial institutions to regulators, with precise and near real-time global outlook on emissions. That's our vision. We are planning to launch our first satellite next year. It's going to be our first demonstrator mission. We are working hard on developing the flight version of the instrument. And sustainability is absolutely deep in our DNA. Yes.
I was going to say, you're preparing now your payload for your first launch next year, but actually you have already had one, let's say, flying payload, I think as early as the previous year, right? But instead of flying in a spacecraft, it was a different kind of craft in a way. Can you explain that, and how did you do that?
Yeah, exactly. So there, we split our development roadmap in several stages, and first were on-ground tests. The next one were tests on the aircraft. So basically, we installed our adapted version of the instrument on the airplane, and we're flying around assets of one of our customers, trying to grasp the emissions. We're planning more campaigns like that this year. And yeah, that's airborne missions is something that helps us a lot to build trust in our technology among our customers.
That, I have to say, is really cool. Flying things around, regardless of whether that being in space or still within the Earth's atmosphere, is very, very fun. But listen, one key thing that I heard from your last answer was one of your customers. So there is a very, very important and big issue to solve with climate change, but then sometimes it's difficult to put names and faces to the actors that are involved and that could change things and have an impact on a positive impact. So who are you targeting? Who are your customers, and what are you trying to help them with?
Right. So first of all, we're helping direct emitters to monitor, understand the emissions better, and act accordingly to this information. So we first started working with oil and gas sector. That's the sector with the highest urgency to reduce methane emissions. There are regulations coming. There's a huge reputational pressure on the sector that drives the decisions behind our customers and accelerates their decision making. They need the data from satellites to the many drivers behind this need, including monitoring of remote areas, have an outlook on different spots on different continents with the same instrument. So that's our first target market. Going further, any direct emitter here, we look at coal, we look at steel production, on the cement production, pretty much any direct emitters that wants to understand their emissions profiles better. The next vertical is financial industry, insurance. These companies are interested to understand their portfolio based on ESG metrics. And finally, regulators that want to verify the reported emissions and also act accordingly. These are three core customer segments for us.
Okay, this is interesting because you're mentioning these three vertical markets, let's say, that you have that you're trying to address. And I would see maybe the first one you mentioned, so for instance, the oil and gas and the regulators being quite opposed to each other, right? Because on the one hand, maybe oil and gas is one of the emitters, and on the other side, the regulator is trying to make sure that these emitters are reducing their emissions. So do you see a conflict in this, or can you work together with both of them?
I think what unites them is the understanding that emissions must be reduced, and we should work collaboratively towards there. For sure, there are certain interests behind their decisions that make them deviate a little bit, but I believe that underlying goal on transition to net zero and transition to alternative energy, this is at the core of the any decisions they're making.
Yeah, I can see that. So tell us a bit more about your technology. So you already mentioned something like LiDAR and what you're working on your payload, but can you describe what is exactly the core expertise that you're putting there in the market with AIRMO, and how are you generating this data that then is used by your customers?
Yeah, right. We build in the instrument that consists of micro LiDAR, short wave infrared spectrometer, and camera in one instrument compartment. LiDAR is used to measure aerosol optical density and derive wind information, wind speed. Like there are a couple of other subproducts. We combine this with column concentrations of methane and CO2, and with that we are able to precisely detect and quantify both gases. Yeah.
Well, you make it sound very simple, but I imagine that this is actually, when it comes to implementation and actually working with your team to build this together, is extremely complex. But just by the sound of it, yeah, it's very, very, it sounds very easy.
It's quite complex indeed. I mean, we will be the first company to commercialize the atmospheric LiDAR. Our CTO, Dr. Igor Medeo, is the mastermind and lead engineer that brings the knowledge and the instrument concept. So yeah, the step from the gliders that are used on ground to a space version of the LiDAR is actually quite substantial.
So, okay, you have the technology, you have the customers. How do you get your data to your customers?
That really depends on the customers and their internal organizations. So what we see already today, some of our customers have R&D or technical teams inside. They have their own emissions monitoring software, and for them we build in just an API, and they receive any information that that they can extract from our satellites. For some customers that do not have these capacities, we are building the dashboard where the emissions, intelligence, the call to action, and intelligence parts are visualized in a very user-friendly way. So two approaches we selected for the user interface.
I imagine that some of your customers are very well informed about the use of the data and the technology and so on, but probably like other areas, particularly in Earth observation and certain applications, you need to educate your customer as well. Sometimes they don't even understand that they need space-based data to tackle a problem that they may be having, with emissions. So how do you find that? Do you find it easy to engage with your customers, and do they understand your value proposition straight away? Or do you have to have different sessions and explain them in detail what is it all about and why is it good for them?
Yeah, I would say here it also depends a little bit on the customer and how big is the urgency in certain products. Some of our customers, they had a chance to educate themselves, and the sales cycles take fairly quite short. On the other side, indeed, most of our clients didn't look at the space-based observations. They're using either ground sensors or airborne sensors, but it's fairly easy to explain them the benefits of space observations. But indeed, it takes some time to go through workshops, to go through in-depth discussions about how space segment can contribute to their needs. Yes.
Yeah.
But I'm actually happy to see more and more companies that get familiar with space technology.
I mean, it's a journey at the end of the day. I think people are getting more used to seeing, space adding value to what they're doing on their daily lives and on their, daily jobs. And I think this is very positive for the sector, but also for the environment. So I think we're in a very positive trend. And even talking about trends, for instance, I'm thinking AIRMO is a German-based company, right? You have offices in Germany. I see a lot of other very successful startups in sort of the same domain, such as Constellar or Auroratech, together with AIRMO, where they have successfully proposed a unique value to their customers, and they're actually thriving. And I was actually wondering, how do you see, in just a few words, because I know this topic could be very, very extensive, but how do you see the role of these startups leading the situation of Europe and the sustainability goals that we have within Europe and potentially even globally?
I see, first of all, I see there are lots of opportunities for startups in this sector. I think sustainability became finally commercially attractive. So there are indeed use cases where sustainability adds business value and not used for the sake of sustainability. I think the existence of these companies in Germany and in Europe is a great example how adapting Earth observation technologies to particular cases is possible, and there are many more to come. And I think that Europe can be proud that there are companies like that exist. We should definitely be an example for the rest of the world, because we don't have that much time to transition to net zero.
I couldn't agree more with you. And Europe needs to play a role by, leading by example. And you guys are doing such a great job in pushing this message all across the board. So congratulations for that. In any case, Daria, we are arriving at the end of our interview. So we're running out of time. And before we go, I wanted to ask you, like I ask every other guest that comes to our podcast, do you have in AIRMO any funny anecdote with your team, or do you have any tradition actually that you have implemented through the short life of the company that you might want to share with us?
Yeah, we have quite many cool traditions. The one I find quite cool is we have a list of prohibited topics. So as you know, in R&D processes and in discussions between scientists and engineers, you have some recurrent topics that everyone likes to go back to. So we decided to maintain the list of prohibited topics and never come back to them.
Honestly, I think that is a rule, or that is a tradition that every single company should implement.
It saves a lot of time.
Yes. Time and headaches as well.
Definitely.
So I think we will also take you up on that suggestion and implement it ourselves in Telespazio. All right, Daria, thank you so much for your time. That was a really, really insightful talk. Thanks again, and hopefully see you soon, and we'll be following up closely the progress of AIRMO in the next few months. Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation, and indeed, looking forward to see the episodes and other episodes.